That's right. Back at it again, Full Custom Hot Dog here, and we're doing a movie review. That's right. Today we're going to be talking about Suicide Squad.
Okay. Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities.
From 2021, directed by James Gunn, recently released on HBO Max, as well as the theaters. We're in this weird pseudo post-COVID era, and I say that because if you haven't been watching the news, things look like they could start getting wacky again. Who knows?
God, if you listen, help!
I have no idea what's happening. It sounds like, according to Twitter, not many people do either. But I did see this in the theater, and I did see this in 4DX.
4DX.
And if you don't know what that is, it is an interesting experience, which I'll probably bring up a few times during the review as it sort of enhances the viewing in a very odd way. So the seats move and water shoots at you. They blow fog through. I'm not even joking. There's smoke that comes in, scents, you can smell things. There's lights on the walls that go off, lights that went through the fog that actually kind of made a scene kind of more magical in a way. It was very odd. It was a very interesting experience. Your seats move around. You feel things hit your back. Not hard, just like these nudges in your back when characters get hit and stuff. It's a whole thing. It's cool. I got a little discount on my tickets because I have the monthly unlimited movie plan. I wouldn't see every movie this way, but I had been wanting to forever. I missed seeing Sonic in this experience, so seeing as the Suicide Squad was doing a showing in 4DX, I took it. But enough about that. Let's talk about the film itself, directed by James Gunn, who, if you don't know, has directed quite a few bangers. A lot of people nowadays are like, oh, James Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy. Sure, technically, but he's so much more than that. James Gunn has always been a talent. I've been a fan of his for quite a while, from some of his time at Troma. I think the moment James Gunn clicked for me was Super. Seeing that movie Super, you could tell what he's capable of as a writer and director.
Don't steal. Don't molest kids. Don't deal drugs.
And he absolutely shines in that film, and I went back and rewatched some of the stuff I had seen. Slither, which is fantastic.
Something's wrong with me.
And experienced something like Lollipop Chainsaw, which is fun. He wrote the Dawn of the Dead remake. He wrote Scooby-Doo. He was even uncredited as writing the 13 Ghosts remake, which has a lot of cool ideas that if you told me those came from James Gunn, I would not be surprised. More notable, though, are his recent works, which is working for Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy. He also wrote the Belko Experiment recently, which is why I ran to the theaters, was because James Gunn did it. He is a guy who will get me to go to the theaters because I think he's a great idea guy. He has wonderful ideas. He's also a really good director. Double whammy. Not everyone's good at both, but he definitely is. And I think he brings his flair, which was much needed, by the way, to not just Suicide Squad, but DC as a whole. I think he kind of nails down the tone that DC has been missing. What's Suicide Squad about? Well, it's definitely a sequel. Some people are treating this like it's some kind of remake. No, it's absolutely a sequel, even though it shares the same name. Maybe a soft reboot, I guess is what you'd call it. But you've got a group of misfits supervillains who are tasked with going to an island and taking care of this mission. They're called the Suicide Squad because these villains are all outfitted with a chip that their controller, Amanda Waller, can trigger and make them explode should they go off mission. If they succeed, they get time taken off their sentence or potentially freed, whatever their demands they work out are. And their mission is to infiltrate this island and stop, if you don't know, the villain. Light spoilers. I'm not going to do too many spoilers through this because there's some great twists and turns here, but the main villain is Starro. And I didn't know much about Starro beforehand. Nowadays, I kind of consider myself like an above average normie when it comes to comic knowledge. 15, 20 years ago, I would have been considered sage-like because I know some deeper cuts and things. But nowadays, with media and comics being everywhere, I'm probably just barely a cut above a normie, which is fine. My real exposure to Starro was on a DC trading card. Me and my dad used to get boxes of superhero trading cards so we could have complete sets. He was just such a comic fan. He doesn't buy comics anymore. I've been buying comics to give to him. No Marvel stuff, though. So we would buy boxes and we'd have complete sets of stuff. And I had a Starro trading card that always kind of freaky. I didn't understand what the hell was happening until reading comprehension kind of kicked in a little bit later. And you're like, oh, gross. And that was kind of it. I don't think I ever read anything with him in it. A lot of other B tier, C tier characters here as well. People like the Polka-Dot Man, who I feel like I'd heard of from, you know, worse supervillain lists, things like that. Some pretty deep cuts here, and that's coming from a above normie tier nerd, I would say. But anyways, how did the film fare? It was a total blast. I was surprised, not because man, you know, these movies have such a weird bar. It's one reason I love DC movies. Marvel, I always feel like are around average. I've mentioned this a few times, but I love the DC Universe movies, and I don't mean that in a way that I think their quality is so great or anything. I mean, I never know what I'm going to get with DC movies. It is outrageous. There is no unifying vision, it feels like. Everything's all over the place. They're still trying to get their footing of what they're doing, and that's why I love their movies. I love going to see them because I don't know if I'm going to get a train wreck, a disaster, maybe something that's just okay, maybe something that exceeds those expectations, but I'm always surprised regardless. At the end, though, I usually at least come out with a good time. So that's saying something, but I always like to try to see them as soon as possible because they're just unpredictable, wildly so. And with James Gunn at the helm of this, you know, it seemed like this all came about because of the whole thing where he got in trouble for some tweets appreciating children in a humorous manner. Gosh, is there a worse way to say that, huh? Anyway, he got in trouble for some joke tweets, and it seemed like Disney were like, no. We're going to just not talk about you for a bit, and you go figure out your life some. And he's like, all right. And then WB swooped in and were like, hey, you want to do a movie? And he's like, hell yeah, I will. And I think he's a much better match for DC than he is Marvel. Marvel, I worry sometimes that maybe I talk too much shit about Marvel, and I don't really mean to. But I think they have a much more positive tone. I think things are a little bit more happier. Yes, things do get dire. There are some stakes involved. But I always feel like DC stuff is a little bit heavier, that it's a little bit more violent. Suicide Squad is absolutely proof of that. This one, not the older one. That's why I think James Gunn really shines. This is the type of environment that Gunn has excelled at forever. Proof positive is watching something like Super, dealing with superheroes, having it be grounded. There's violence.
All right, let's get it.
That's not too violent and mixed in with his own twisted sense of humor. And I think that may be what the WB needs in its DC universe. And if I was the WB, and it doesn't look like Zack Snyder's coming back, nor do I think he wants to come back after finally getting his Snyder cut out, I think that's got to be incredibly therapeutic. And I would also imagine he wants nothing to do with them again. I would be getting James Gunn to helm the DC universe, because the way he handles superheroes with the type of light and dark that's sort of needed, the seriousness, the lightheartedness that comes into play, and then of course the violence. I mean, this is a hard R rated film, so you are getting headshots and things like that, but it also feels like a movie that you could take your kids to. And that kind of sounds weird, but you do have the lovable king shark.
Ratatouille, what do you got?
Bird.
Now it. Stay off the comm.
Portrayed by Sylvester Stallone. You know, you've got Polka-Dot Man, who is in an odd state of mind, but I could see kids finding some of these eclectic characters funny. Ratcatcher 2, excuse me, absolutely adorable. And you could see kids loving that character. Of course, you've got goofball, silly Harley Quinn, who I'm finally starting to warm up to. I haven't necessarily cared for her a whole lot throughout every film I've seen, but I'm starting to like her here, and that may be because of James Gunn. She's got an excellent action scene, by the way. Her action scene, which is this incredible fight down a hallway. Every time she slits a throat, and yes, I've said that, there's throat slitting, and you see the blood spurt out. When I was watching it in 4D, the blood, the water would pump out of the seat in front of you to get on you, as if it's spurting on you. And then when someone would fall, there would be like a push into your back, like something's hitting you. Very wild experience. Anyway, there's a lot of great characters here that feel like kids could actually appreciate. Now, you do see faces explode quite a few times. Like I mentioned, throats being slit, gun violence, people getting electrocuted, just all kinds of deaths, half corpses being controlled by a giant starfish. It's not necessarily a kid's movie. And maybe that's why it's such a blast. It's so ridiculous, so unbelievable, but so fun. And I couldn't believe how many of the characters I came out of here liking. One feeling I missed so much, and I kind of attributed it to me being a kid, was as a kid I'd come out of a movie and be like, damn, I really want that video game for that movie. And I'd sometimes go out and bug my parents if I could rent it. I want the figures for that movie. And that's a feeling that I never have anymore. I was hoping Star Wars would reinvigorate that for me. That I would have come out of Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and think, man, I want figures for this, for this, for this. I'm a Star Wars fan again. No, but Suicide Squad, I came out of there like, where's that Suicide Squad game that was talked about? Where's the toys? What's the marketing at here? Because I liked so much that was going on. To the point where I was so bummed to see some characters die.
Here is to all the winos in the world, and that's to you, Dad.
And in a way, I had to kind of remind myself, hey, this is based on a comic book. And if you've read comic books, you know that people don't really die. No one ever really dies in comic books. So I'm hoping that whenever another entry happens, that some of the characters that I liked that were finished off weren't end up coming back. That's the dream. That's the goal. But this movie's a ton of fun. I'd be surprised at people who don't like it. There are some lulls and things like that, but I think overall it's such a blast and there's so much fun being had with the material. I'd be kind of surprised at people who didn't have a good time. I don't know how you couldn't. I really hope if those WB executives are watching, give Gunn a chance. Toss him an extra $40, $50. I don't know how much directors make. And see if you'll just head up the DC universe. Do everything as an R-rated, fun movie, and you gotta trick parents into bringing their kids into them.
Okay, kids, let's go.
And you're gonna have a killer DC universe. The DC universe is wildly unstable. It's like we're constantly hearing about it being rebooted, reimagined, restarted, multiverses. Who knows what's even canon with the main DC universe? I think everything is.
I'm the Joker, baby.
I think. I'm not willing to accept yet that there are things that aren't. And one thing that's been kind of a bummer about Suicide Squad, this new one, is seeing people automatically detract the old one. Oh, it's so much better. F the old one, F the old one.
I got burgers. Fuck your life. I got chicken. Fuck your life.
Got totally screwed out of his director's cut. It's a bummer and it sucks. He released a big statement about it, talking about what he actually meant to do with his film, all that kind of stuff. And I hope that's something that sees the light of day. It's kind of a shame that he didn't get the kind of push for his version like Zack Snyder did. But granted, I think Justice League was something that was probably a better movie than Suicide Squad, but also showed more potential at being something much bigger. I can't imagine an Ayer cut being hugely different, but you know, the way he describes it, it really does sound like a very different movie. So definitely a huge bummer, but an absolute blast. I liked all the characters. I want more. I've been starting to go to my comic shop recently. There's one nearby when I leave the movies, and maybe I'll pick up some DC hero books, man. And then I wonder if that's going to be the problem. They do these movies, and then you want to see more of these characters, and the books that are on the shelves don't have the characters that I want to see in them because we just watched the movie. We kind of hope that they could kind of work something out between the comics division and the movie division. You know, maybe the movie guys could say, hey, we're dropping Polka-Dot Man in the movie, so could you do some shit with Polka-Dot Man coming up? Make it happen. You know, comic sales are rough. I don't want to see comics go away. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the news. I'm just kind of rambling now, so you could absolutely tune out of this video. But recently in the news, a bunch of writers from Marvel and DC have been leaving those companies to go do their own stuff on something called Substack. I'm not sure what that is, but I feel like I'm probably going to soon, considering a bunch of people are leaving to go there. So anyways, enough rambling. I don't want to see a beloved industry die. But at the same time, you also hear stories where they keep screwing over writers. That guy who created Rocket Raccoon, he was in, I don't know, he had some brain issue or something, and they had to do a GoFundMe to try to pay his hospital bills. That's so unnecessary with how much money that Rocket Raccoon has made. It's a damn tragedy. So maybe it does need to die. What the hell do I know? I don't know. I'm just rambling now. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm your host, Full Custom Hot Dog. You can follow me on Twitter. It's full custom hot dog without the last because that's just too long for Twitter. So, thank you all for watching, and until next time. If you like what you see,
I love what I see.
Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you can watch whatever comes next. And if you like the music you hear, you can follow me on SoundCloud and Spotify. Check the description for links.